Hey ladies and gentlemen, we're ready to start our first project in Foundation 1, which is a very important one. It deals with line. Line is very important. We use line in art all the time. It's one of the basic elements, but yet, like I said, one of the most important ones. So let's talk about line before I start experimenting and showing you things with line. Line can show movement or rest. So when you have a horizontal line, on a picture plane, it's rest. It's a place for your eyes to rest. Vertical lines can either show movement, pull your eye down or up, or they can be another place for your eye to rest in a design. Now, most importantly, diagonal lines. Diagonal lines show movement and energy in every which way, which they're always very exciting. So when we use line to create shape, think about shapes. Rectilinear shapes are quiet shapes, such as triangles, squares, rectangles. They're very quiet. The curvilinear shapes go woo, and the circle shapes go woo. They jump out at you in design. So think about that when you're working with your design. Round shapes, curved shapes, woo, they claim attention, show attention. So those things to think about with design. Another thing to think about with design is overlaption. Overlaption helps shows depth in your design. Also making bigger shapes and smaller shapes shows depth. Bigger shapes will move forward while smaller shapes move backwards in design. So things to also think about is Gestalt's theories. Some of his theories are showing multiples of 3 and 7. So repeating something 3 or 7 times in a design, an odd number especially, is more interesting than an even number. Think about things like that in your design. Think about repetition. You want to repeat shapes. You don't want every shape on this piece of paper to be different. So let's get into the first project. You need to create sketches. A white piece of paper is very kind of overwhelming. And by the way, I'm using a Sharpie so you can see. You can draw with a pencil or whatnot, but a Sharpie is easier for me, for y'all to see. This trick I'm fixing to show you comes from some fabric design techniques about starting in the center of the paper, and I'll show you what you do after you start in the center of the paper. So remember, circular repetition and such with your designs. So I might start out with some curvilinear shapes. And maybe I'll have huge circle, but it's behind that one, and then it's got this other one. It's doing stuff like this. Maybe. So you got that one behind there. Maybe it's going to be over here. And then maybe there's something else. Maybe, 3. So maybe I'll have another one of these things. Doing it like it does that. So after you have drawn in the center of your picture plane, you want to cut your paper. This is paper tearing, which is a printmaking technique. So I'm going to tear my paper instead of cutting it. It doesn't matter. Cut it with scissors, whatever you need to do. So I have 2 halves now. So I want to put the white again in the center. White again, center. So, ta-da, I have another piece of paper again. And like I said, you might want to repeat some of your shapes you're doing. It's more interesting that way. When I'm mixing it up a little bit. And then, maybe I'll have another big circle right here, right here, right here, right here, here. And yeah, so do like that. I should have waited and not drawn so far out. Should have contained it a little bit more than this, but that's okay. It's art. There's no right or wrong answer. Now, so then I should have left the white space where there would have been more white space in the middle. There's not quite a lot in the middle now because I did that one shape going off the side, but that's okay. We work with it. That's what artists do. We work, and sometimes we draw impulses and different things from center. So look at this. I'm having some stuff going on like that. So there seems, you see how this is a little unbalanced? There's more white over here than there. I think we do something like that. Maybe I'll continue to do a bigger circle here, whatnot, with some other circle designs here. So, you know, I got this interesting thing. Overall, for the whole of this, I'm not too wild about it. So, if you're not too wild about what you got, you can either scrap it, start anew, or you can make like a viewfinder. So I have this scrap piece of paper here that I'm going to create a viewfinder. A viewfinder is a way to like zoom in on something and maybe find something interesting in the smaller versions of it. For the old folks in the world, we used to use old slides to make viewfinders because they have a square. So you don't want to make the hole too big. I'm gonna make my hole a little too big. I don't know. If I did, I can always cut another one. So with the viewfinders, you can go into areas and find stuff and be like, that looks like this looks interesting. So this could be one of my 8 sketches. Remember, I asked you to do 8 sketches. And we'll pick the 3 best of the 8 sketches to make bigger. That moved a little bit, but you kind of get the idea. So there's there. Let's see what's going on with this. My marks. A little sloppy. Maybe I like this design. I might find something else. Ooh, that kind of looks neat. So this is all one way you can do to figure out what you want to do for your pieces. So there's 3, not too bad. I'm going to pause this video for a minute and I'm going to draw one of these, I think this one bigger, and I want to talk to you about how to play with texture. See you in a minute. So this is the one I have chosen from here. I've edited it a little bit from the original design. I added this other circle to help give this negative space a little more interest. So as you look, you know, this design has these nice diagonals, diagonal movement in it. And it's simple and it's repeating shapes, but it has an interesting feel about it. So this is still a sketch. I haven't decided to put this as my final piece. So I'm going to work with it, thinking about lights and darks. Think about shading and textures and value. You don't want to get too many. So lines closer together makes a dark, so I might do things like this to help give this sense of light and dark, like this is farther back because it's darker. And again, and there's no right or wrong answer to this. You just want to create a design that is interesting. Try not to have, you see how these little jagged things, that's basically bad craftsmanship. Of course, this is a sketch, so it's not that important. You wouldn't want that in your final piece. You see how that's already added interest and how these are darker and lighter. So things to think about with circle with shapes is like if you have a round shape, if you do make your lines go around the contour, which I mean by, if I repeat making the lines curvilinear like they are in this circle, it kind of helps give it a sense of 3D-ness of value and shape and form. It makes it kind of pop out more. So like if I had a circle and I just did this to do like shading for value, that looks very flat compared to that. So think about that. Think about the contour, the shapes, and how to make it more interesting. So these circles, maybe I want to play around with texture. Maybe I want dots, which will drive you crazy. And then as they get farther apart, they get, you know, a sense of light. And I wouldn't, you know, play with some textures, but when you decide on your final design, I would not use more than 3 different textures in the design because that's going to get things overwhelming. You can still play with patterns. So maybe I want one circle of dots, maybe the next one with these curvilinear round shapes in it to help give it a sense of being round. Maybe since I did that, if I'm playing with patterns, maybe I want this one to be dots. Something like that. Maybe this one round shapes. Maybe this one dots. And this one round. I'm trying to be constant. You see where I'm making most of the darks on the side. Like the viewpoint, the light's coming this way. There's some things to be a little conscious about, to think about. So that looks like a pretty, you know, interesting idea, concept for one of my 3 if I wanted to. This design breaks down the vertical axis and horizontal axis. There's a nice break. It has, believe it or not, we'll talk about later, asymmetrical designs are more interesting. It has this nice asymmetrical thing to it where if I cut this in half, it's still balanced, but it's asymmetrical, so it's different on each side. So it has this nice organic feel about it. I will talk to you soon. That's it for this lecture. Thank you.